Tubers and trolls, Chris here with Telesplash Gaming. Hope you had a great Thanksgiving, but we're moving on. Christmas is just around the corner, my favorite holiday. And with Christmas, as a kid, Christmas always meant games, man. You're getting some presents, you're always hoping there was one of those games underneath the Christmas tree as a kid. And as an adult, now it means I get some time off from work so I can hang out with friends, family, and sneak in some of those gaming sessions. And you know what? I've got a few games that I always think about when it comes to the holidays. Some of these are good, some are terrible, but they're stuck in my memory from my childhood and even a couple from my adulthood. So let's take a look. So the first game up my list is Batman Arkham Origins. Now, of the big Arkham series, I think Arkham Origins is kind of considered like the worst of the bunch. But frankly, that's like getting a bunch of Maple bars and having to pick a bad one. They're all pretty good. And frankly, I loved Arkham Origins. I thought the storyline was awesome. You're basically a brand new superhero who is Bruce Wayne taking up the cowl in his early years as Batman. And you find yourself on Christmas Eve with a bounty placed on your head by Black Mask, which draws 8 of the world's best assassins to try to come into Gotham City and take you out. The storyline was awesome, and that was just the beginning, and it branched off and became so much more. If you haven't played the Arkham series, you are definitely missing out on some of the best superhero and action beat-em-up games that have come out in the last decade. And this game was so fun, I love the story, and frankly, being set on Christmas Eve, it really did have that Christmas feeling to it. Okay, I'm kind of cheating because I'm sticking within the same franchise, and this is Batman Returns, which came out for pretty much all the systems at the time, and it was fantastic. Now, it's a movie tie-in video game, but it was good. If you like Final Fight, if you like, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles arcade game or Turtles in Time, you like Double Dragon, then this is right down your alley. This is a side-scrolling beat-em-up game featuring Batman. And as a kid, an 8-year-old kid, grabbing a clown and throwing him through the window was literally one of the most satisfying things I could even think of in that moment. And you picked up the clowns, you threw them on the ground, you bashed their heads together. I mean, it was a pretty savage game for, being a cartoon Batman game. And as a kid, I loved it. And the game was fun. The beat-em-ups were the best in the 90s, and this is no exception. Maybe it's not the very best game that came out, but as a kid, I absolutely loved Batman Returns. And there's presents, there's snow, it's a Christmas-themed game, so hey, check it out. 2 Batman games down. No more on this list, I promise. Oh, speaking of movie tie-ins. Now this is one that haunts my dreams here. Home Alone 2 Lost in New York. Now the crooks weren't the only ones tortured in 1992. If you had a chance to play this game, you know what I mean. I couldn't even help but punish myself by playing this one. I didn't even own the game. My cousin was the unfortunate one that got this one for Christmas or a birthday or something. And when you get a game as a kid, you're not able to go buy a bunch of games and trade them in. We're talking the early 90s here. So we played it. And by play it, I mean we ran around the hotel set in the Home Alone 2 world and just got murdered. I could never even get out of the hotel. This game is hard and it's not very good. But it takes place during Christmas, so that's something, right? And the first game wasn't any better. It was pretty bad itself. Although the Genesis version, which I did not play, I heard was pretty good. So if you want to play a good Home Alone game, the only one I can even recommend would be the original Home Alone for the Genesis. Other than that, pop this in for nostalgia, see what I was getting tortured with as a kid, and move on. How about some Donkey Kong Country 3? Now, of the Donkey Kong Country series, this is probably the one I like the least. I mean, it's a great game. It's still fantastic. The characters just didn't do it for me. I really love Donkey Kong and Diddy Kong, and Donkey Kong Country 2 is probably the best one, but Donkey Kong Country 3 was fun. So why was it on my list? Well, because if you go into the cheat code by putting in a combination with LRRLL, something like that, you can put in the word Merry, and you hear a little sound, and now every bonus level within Donkey Kong Country 3 is Christmas themed, with ornaments you're collecting and presents, and there's even some Christmas music to seal the deal. So Donkey Kong Country 3, good game, great game really. It has a little Christmas flair if you put the right code in. And who needs a reason to play some Donkey Kong Country? Definitely one of the best series on the Super Nintendo, and it still holds up today. Now the next game on my list, I don't need a reason to play it. If it was Valentine's Day, I'd say this is a great Valentine's Day game. And that's Super Mario 64. I love Super Mario 64, and it came out in the winter of '96, and it just resonates with Christmas. It just reminds me of Christmas when I hear Super Mario 64. And frankly, there's a snow level. Cool Mountain. That's one of my favorite levels in the game. You're having to help a penguin, you're helping a snowman, you're sliding around on ice doing a race. It was a really cool snow level. So, maybe not Christmas themed, but do you really need a reason to pick up one of the greatest games that's ever been created and my personal favorite Mario game of all time? Mario 64 is a classic, and Cool Mountain was just one of the many fantastic worlds within that game. And if you want to get into a game over Christmas, it's always fun to try to beat that game and complete it. Getting those 120 stars is always entertaining, and the game is just so good. Even though the graphics are kind of wishy-washy, it still holds up and it's still fun. So Super Mario 64 makes my list on great Christmas games. Now this game screams Christmas, days before Christmas. Now you probably haven't even heard of this game because it wasn't released in the United States. It was released exclusively in Australia and then in Europe, and frankly, it's a pretty fun action platforming game featuring the jolly old elf himself, Santa. Your reindeer were captured, your elves were imprisoned, by who? An evil snowman. So okay, the plot's a little weak, I mean I get it, but it is the most Christmas game they've ever made. And through emulation, it's easy to find, and it's actually a pretty fun platforming game. I mean, nothing great, it's super easy. The biggest obstacle is just the holes, the pits you fall through. Everything else, it's pretty easy to play, but it's pretty entertaining. It's got great Christmas music, the levels are fun, they're set up, through like an advent calendar, and I mean, the graphics are good. It's just a really fun, kind of easy game for everybody of all ages, especially kids, because it's really hard to die. And if you get a cup of coffee, you turn into Anti-Claus, which is like the evil version of Santa. So it's just a fun Christmas-themed game, and it's the closest one to Christmas I could possibly think of, and I actually had quite a bit of fun doing game capture for this one. So if you want one to play with the kids, this is the one to play. Super easy, and throwing fireballs at a snowman really is pretty entertaining. Alright guys, a few games to get you in the holiday spirit. I know you're watching your movies, but throw a few of these games in. I'm sure you've heard of them, you've probably played most of them, but hopefully you haven't heard of the Merry Code for Donkey Kong Country 3. I hope you haven't been able to play Days Before Christmas, because that's a pretty cool one. So check them out. A couple games on here, get you ready for the holidays. Keep rolling, keep trolling. We'll talk to you guys soon.